Salutations, my friends, and thank you for tuning in to a very special edition of Factions of Freedom. I'm your host, Noise Era, Freedom Faction, whichever one you prefer, and I have titled this episode Natural Healing, Alternative Therapies, and the Big Pharma Mafia. We are actually joined by Dr. Stephanie Grutz, a board-certified nurse, as well as an IV specialist and nutritional therapist. That's right, she joins us on the show this week to break down different things surrounding the coronavirus. That's right, alternative approaches towards building your immune system as well as fighting the virus. This information-packed transmission will leave your mind blown. We're definitely going to have the good Dr. Stephanie Grutz back on with us again to talk about UV light spectrums and how different colors have different healing effects. A couple weeks ago, Trump made a off-the-cuff remark about how light can disinfect viruses in the body. And ironically enough, the good doctor is with us today to talk about these good things. And without spoiling too much, let's start the show.
In 3, 2, 1. Salutations, my friends, and thank you for joining me in this very special edition of Factions of Freedom. I'm actually joined by Dr. Stephanie Grutz, a board-certified ARNP FNP-C nurse. I know I botched that up. She's a IV nutritional therapist, as well as an integrative medicine specialist and a natural healing advocate. Stephanie, other than botching up your introduction, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. So I'll tell you the credentials. So I'm a nurse practitioner, board certified. ARNP is Advanced Registered Nurse Practitioner. FNPC is Family Nurse Practitioner Certified. All those letters, that's all it means. I'm a nurse practitioner. I was trained in Western medicine. And then through my own health that I'm sure we'll get into later, I started looking at integrative options. So I specialize in integrative care, which is what I bring to my patients.
And Stephanie, you're actually joining us because a couple weeks ago, inadvertently, inadvertently I posted a article about UV light being used as a treatment in relationship to the coronavirus. And the video that we equipped with the actual post came from your page that we found out after the fact, but ironically enough, it had nothing to do with the coronavirus. It was just brought up during that time frame. Would you like to explain why the treatment started in the first place, and then we can connect it to what's going on right now?
Yeah, so the whole post I made was when President Trump got on and was talking about the theories of like using lights. They were light and heat is effective outside the body. So he was saying in an off sort of Trump way about talking about IV lights inside the body. And then he was talking about disinfectants in the body. So before everybody, because I knew people were already posting that, he said to inject Clorox bleach and all that, which wasn't truth. But I wanted to make it clear to people that we already use this therapy in America and around the world, IV UV light therapy and like vitamin C IV, which turns into hydrogen peroxide in the cells. So like we're already using cleaning disinfectants throughout our body to heal us. And so that's kind of what brought on the post. And, it was just something that I knew that was going to be popular among my peers, but I had no idea that it was going to turn viral.
Well, people are not necessarily desperate for cures and alternatives, but seeing a treatment similar to what you put out offers an alternative narrative other than what we're hearing. Oh, Stephanie, I think we might have lost her. I think we might have briefly lost Stephanie. Okay. And yep. Stephanie? Well, I think we might have Had a minor disconnect right there. Okay. Well, while we try to get Stephanie back in here, I figured I should let you guys know one of the reasons. Wow. Stephanie, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I don't know what that was about.
I don't either. You were saying people are searching for a cure, and then it just froze.
Well, sadly enough, we just had somebody on last week talking about the censorship of nutraceutical supplement salesmen, how they're having to reword some of their pitches, removing things like preventative medicines and treatments and stuff like that because of the coronavirus. And so I just think it's kind of funny that while we're talking about even the thought of a cure, it would happen here as well. But I was going into how, with the coronavirus, all this fear that's being put out there right now, the post that you put out there, it offers a different alternative and a different narrative other than what's being promoted. So if you could speak a little bit more about that.
Yeah, what I was hoping for with my post was that it would give people ideas that there are alternative medicines available and that we don't have to do just one way. Western medicine is great at some things. It is great with acute traumas. That's what Western medicine is for, the quick fixes, the surgeries, the traumas. What Western medicine isn't good for is preventative medicine. I mean, how many people can go, like, a hospital wouldn't be in business if it didn't have sick people, where doctors wouldn't be busy if they didn't have sick people. It's just this chronic, failing system for healthcare, for prevention, for true health and getting to the root cause. So, my post was really, I try to wake people up with just the truth. I don't want to bring politics into it. Of course, it had to be political because it was him. And that's what I saw my post being thread to, was either like supporting, people's confirmation bias. There's a lot of confirmation bias going on right now. So my posts try to stay in the middle so that people can take their own truths from what is really happening in the world.
Yes. Vitamins, supplements, nutraceuticals, they don't play politics. They just are. We play politics with these items. That's why when you talk to a lot of people these days, they think nutraceuticals, they think supplements are a joke because they don't actually know the benefits of them. You're a doctor, I'm sure you're aware of how many Americans are on different pharmaceuticals or on prescription drugs and what this does to people's biology over time as well as their mind. So when you're talking about like preventative medicines and alternative cures, I feel like that should be like the only thing that we're talking about, because what we're seeing with this particular event, this crisis, we're seeing that some of our approaches, they're not archaic, but they're band-aids on scars. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, we're used to treating people with covering our symptoms up with band-aids, and we get to that point of no return, right? So like, oh, we have to be intubated, but a lot of the studies out there are showing that metabolic imbalances, having insulin resistance, diabetes, all of being obese, all of those things are putting us at higher risk for being for having more severe cases of this COVID.
Comorbidity factors. And to be
Comorbidities.
honest, if you could speak a little bit about that, because we're not, unfortunately, one of the healthiest nations. We don't have great hygiene. We don't necessarily take care of ourselves. I mean, a couple years ago, we had doctors telling us that cigarettes were good. So if you could speak about the current state of health in America.
So when I see patients, they're typically pretty ill and they've seen a lot of other providers, and that's why they search out integrative medicine, because they are just sick of taking supplements or not getting to the root of their illness.
Yes.
There's just layers of things, environmental, all the plastics. So just for example, with plastics, like they're phytoestrogens, there's fake hormone disrupting chemicals in these plastics. So then we grow up in this time where our girls are having periods when they're really young because of the fake plastics that they're, heating up in the microwave and consuming on a daily basis. So, environment plays a huge part of our health. And We can talk about vaccines all we want. That's a huge trigger to our immune system when we don't have a good, solid immune system to begin with. But
Yes.
other things like mold and biotoxins and illness and viruses and pathogens, they can all serve in our body in some healthy way until our body gets so inflamed and disrupted that it can't keep up anymore. And that's when we have all this immune problems, the comorbidities, the inflammation, and we get sick easy.
Yes. I don't think we were talking before the show. You were asking kind of like the history behind us, the operation, and what we do. Everything that you mentioned there is one of the reasons why we've created what we've created and why we have on guests like yourself to have these kind of conversations, because we're seeing a system provide essentially death to us, and we're having to go out of our way to look at the benefits of vitamin D3, look at the benefits of zinc, iodine, magnesium, vitamin A, vitamin K, all these different things, because they're not taught to us. And in our society today, in our generation that we've grown up in, you know, they tell you that what is it? That pharmaceuticals, that not hydroxychloroquine, but hydrocodone, that oxys, that these are the things that help with like your anxiety. But whenever we learn that these things actually create chemical dependencies and it actually furthers the damage, it's because that narrative is not out there. We're not talking about, as you said before, actually healing the damage. Uh, because we could go on for hours on this. But just to kind of switch gears a little bit, and then we'll get into some of the questions and topics and things. We're talking about Band-Aids on scars. Speak a little bit about the IV light therapy. I feel like that is so cool to me. Like injecting light into your body, and I know that's like an over dramatized way to look at it, but I feel like that's so cool in so many different ways. And I know that there's IV light for babies that have jaundice, but why is it something that's supported?
So, I mean, it is supported. So we use it in Western medicine, just in different applications. Like you said, UV light for, children with jaundice, or for, I have a lot of patients that if they have psoriasis, they can go in and do UV light treatments for that, which totally eradicates their psoriasis on their skin. So there's a lot of external applications for lights and heat therapy for healing us. The UV light that I was doing, so I went to Seattle. My mentor, his name is Dr. Paul Anderson. He owns Advanced Medical Therapies in Seattle, Washington. He's amazing. He's wrote Outside the Box Cancer Therapies. He's just a true pioneer in everything that I do, so I always give him credit. But I went out there to do some therapies for myself because I have Crohn's, and I was going through different treatments. So with what our regimen was I was hooked up to IV nutrients, and then I also had a catheter, so an IV line in my arm that has a catheter with fiber cables, basically, that you insert like you would an IV. And there you're showing it. Yeah. And so then they inject the light through the bloodstream. So it's not going in throughout your whole body, but it's going through that section of your arm where blood is constantly being recirculated. Your blood pumps through your system every 45 seconds. So, I mean, the blood's being treated as it passes through that light system.
That is so I'm sorry. To me, it's just like so mind-boggling and like awesome.
It is. And so there's different colors. There's red, there's yellow, blue, the UV, blue, green, and they all have different properties.
So we're, oh my God, okay. I'm trying not to get excited. We're literally talking about like the color spectrum and how different types of light can have different types of benefits in your body.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. So let me just get you to explain the vitamin C and treatment with it, and then we'll go into the questions from there, because I'll get so excited on this that we won't touch anything else.
That's okay. No, any questions for that? But yeah, so each I did all the different light spectrums on it as I was going through the different treatments, whichever worked best with what was being infused at the time. So yeah, I love that. In talking about the vitamin C therapy, that's what my passion is. That's what I do often. And I have a lot of cancer patients. So what happens when you give vitamin C at lower doses, it's an antioxidant. Once you get about 20 grams, so 20,000 milligrams, and you do this via IV. Once you get to that, it turns into an oxidant. So it goes from antioxidant to an oxidant. And people are like, well, oxidants are bad, right? Well, oxidant is like a chemotherapy agent. But with vitamin C, it goes through the body and it doesn't wreck the good cells. It only kills the bad cells. So the high doses go into the veins and it turns into hydrogen peroxide in the body.
Wow.
It kills off the bad cells and it works really synergistically with chemotherapy agents.
Wow. This is this is so amazing. Early, whenever all this was happening, I had recommended to people to get like a diffuser, put iodine with a little bit of hydrogen peroxide in there, not a humidifier, a diffuser, because of where the actual virus attacked your upper respiratory area. And with the hydrogen peroxide, the iodine, they would actually help clear some of that out. So just to hear you talk about vitamin C transforming into that, it's just like, I don't know, I find it amazing.
Yeah.
But just to kind of switch gears again, because I don't want to spend too much time on one thing. But what are your thoughts of these nurses doing these TikTok videos? I think that people are worried with everything that's going on, and I know that it's a form of solidarity. But what are other ways that nurses and individuals like yourself can offer us courage during these times?
That's a really hard question for me to answer just because as a nurse, I understand what it's like being in places where you're busy, you're stressed. Nurses do not have it easy by any means.
None.
And I can't tell you what they're going through right now. I don't know if they're really busy and they're taking breaks and doing this. I saw one that, they were carrying out a COVID patient, like, a fake death patient, and it didn't rub me the right way. I think that since I've seen like what backlash happened with my post, and I'm a really honest human being, and I really am here to help heal my patients. And so when I see people try to make you out to be a bad person, like I don't think that it was ever an intent for the nurses to, to make it look like they're playing around or making fun or, I don't know the truth. Like that's I think the hardest thing with all of us is that we're not there. So we can't see, are they busy? Is this happening to the extent that the media portrays it is? Because that I think is the hardest thing for us, just sitting indoors waiting for, the country to open up again, is what is the truth? And that's what we're all just trying to figure out.
You mentioned it briefly right there. Did you receive blowback from posting that video?
Just the video and the post in general, people just claiming that I was just a Trump supporter, which I have no claims to political parties. But, are just saying like it being quackery or, hope that I was still alive after doing all these things. And, it's just people's ignorance. And I tell people, you will try anything. If you've had a chronic disease or illness or cancer, like you will try anything, and it's not wrong. It's not wrong to want to try something. What's your alternative? Chemotherapy will kill you. Will kill you at some point. So it's one of those things that I'm an advocate for people doing what feels best for them, and it's different for every person.
I'm sure we'll get into this. Kind of what spurred you to go down this path, because whenever I was getting articles and videos and stuff together, I was going through your page. And personally, I have like a fear of needles. I don't know what it is. So like inherently, I'm like away from vaccines and stuff like that. But the way that you're promoting and putting out the IV treatment, it sounds silly, but I was like, wow, like this actually sounds like something that I would go into. It seems like you're trying to put things into people's bodies that help flush the system and build the immune system up, instead of the alternative with a vaccine, to where it seems like it kind of destroys the immune system and compromises you. So I just think it's crazy. Just how the same thing can be viewed through a different lens. One can be designed for death, and the other one can basically give you life. But the next question I had is, What do you think about these nurses and doctors being furloughed during this crisis?
It's like any other profession, right? Everybody's going to be suffering and they're going to feel it. And I don't know what it's going to look like in a few months when things are rolled out, but I know a lot of docs in my local area that, they survive on elective procedures and things like that. And they haven't been able to do them just because of the laws and regulations. So, it's really putting anybody out of a job for a long period of time isn't sustainable for our economy. So we'll see.
It doesn't make sense. None of what we're seeing as far as the medical approach doesn't make sense. The political approach doesn't make sense. The sociological approach doesn't make sense. And we'll leave that over there. We'll let other people decide that. But during this time frame, have you had an increase or an influx in patients? Have people tried to seek out more of your therapy?
Yeah, I've had a steady stream. So, like when all of this went down, I really changed the way of the outline of my clinic. So instead of, having 4 people in a room at a time, it was very spaced out throughout the day so that people aren't getting exposed to other people. But it's been good. Like people are calling, people are emailing, people are reaching out, wanting to know different information or where they can find local people to help them. So yeah, it's really exciting to just open up the conversation.
And is this like yeah, I feel like this is just something that should be talked about more. Why isn't this field promoted? Like why doesn't this seem like it should be more popular? I feel like this is phenomenal.
It really is, and I think it's just the fear of the unknown, right? Like anything new or anything, Western medicine has just been such an integral part of our upbringing for most people, most Americans, that like this stuff seems weird. But when on the West Coast, it's very common that it happens. I'm in Midwest, I'm in Iowa, so people around here, they're like, what is all of this? But my passion, so like I was saying earlier, I have Crohn's disease. I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease when I was 20 years old. I had a DTaP vaccine. 3 weeks later, I was diagnosed with seronegative rheumatoid arthritis.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was a nurse at the time. I was Western medicine. I didn't know anything about integrative medicine. My first job as a nurse was a flu shot nurse. I gave hundreds of flu shots, and
Wow.
I didn't know the difference. I mean, that's what I was taught. And so I didn't realize that that was even a correlation, even though it came so soon after.
Speak on that whole experience, because I feel like that is we've talked about the kind of cross reactions that happen with children when they take vaccines and certain pharmaceuticals, but hearing somebody come from Western medicine approach and they just kind of have their world rocked by this, I feel like your testimony is extremely powerful. So please speak on that whole experience if you could.
Yeah, so I was that nurse, the nurse that would, 20 years old thinking I knew everything. I would see mothers that were anti-vaxxers and I would be like, you guys are crazy. I would chastise them. And I know the universe aligned me with, I couldn't find a job right away after I graduated. And the first thing that was available was being a flu shot nurse. So anyways, that's what I did. And I know that there was a reason. And after doing that, I had to give a bunch to elderly patients, and they're so weak and frail to begin with. I just one day was like, I'm never giving another injection again. So then with my own health, when I got the DTaP vaccine, I didn't know. So I just woke up one day and I could hardly walk. My ankles were huge. And I mean, I'm a pretty healthy person. But looking back, when, sometimes takes the stubborn people like myself a while to figure things out. So, in the meantime, while I was figuring out what happened, like I was on methotrexate, which is a cancer drug. I was on steroids. I did the Western medicine thing.
Wow.
And then I kept getting sick. So by the time I was about 25, like I was just getting worse and I felt horrible every day. And that's when I was finally diagnosed with Crohn's, which I had the whole time. But that's when I was like, I got to a point where I was on a biologic. It was called Humira. and it
Wow.
wasn't working. And I was like, what am I going to do next? Like, this is one of the harshest meds I can take. I'm shutting my immune system off. Like, there's no reason why a healthy person would
In
get
the
a
prime of your
disease like
life.
this. Right. And so that's when I started like looking into things deeply. And what I realized was when I got the DTaP vaccine, my immune system was not healthy. I had a lot of stress in my life. Just graduated, just started a new job. I didn't have good friendships, relationships. There was just a lot of toxicity. And so that was just it wasn't the cause. It was one of the main factors that just took my immune system over the edge.
Mhm.
So luckily down the road, I read this article from a chiropractor about leaky gut, and that was what changed my life.
Wow. That is that's an amazing testimony, because you're basically explaining how you're coming from the medical health field trying to help people, and in a weird way you're seeing the not the corruption and not the incompetence, but kind of just the hiccups, the failures, the cracks within the system.
Oh
From
yeah.
helping people to the vaccines to already realizing like we shouldn't be doing some of these things.
You
Um,
know, when the same with that, like parallel to that, I was working in a nursing home as a nurse practitioner. I ran an acute rehab center, so I had 80 people that I was in charge of, and most of them were coming from the hospital acutely ill, and I mean they're elderly, and they were being fed gluten, dairy, sugar. And I'm like,
wow.
how are they ever going to heal when they're on this highly inflammatory diet? And I I just that's what was one of the deciding factors that made me leave, was because I needed to do something that would help me and help other people.
You know what's weird is, ironically enough, you're confirming what a lot of people have said, that some doctors go through their whole medical schooling, their whole training, and don't really receive a lot of information about nutritions or vaccines. They're actually just given these things and then put into the system. And so you're
Yeah.
talking about gut microbiome, the importance of that, having like a healthy diet, all these different types of things. That wasn't discussed when you went to school or whenever you
No.
started a job.
No, it wasn't. And I guess to
So
me
that
the
was,
most
just to interject, that was something you had to learn yourself. You had to go out of your way to get
oh yeah,
more versed on human biology, on how it all works, how stuff bioaccumulates, like vaccine inserts,
all of it.
gut micro. You had to go out of your way for that after paying for a medical degree.
So yeah, I'm a nurse practitioner.
Wow.
So going through my studies, my vaccine was basically you get the timeline. This is what you give to them at this time. You memorize that. You don't question it. You don't know anything about treating adverse reactions. There's none of that. This is what the kids need to get at this time. And what do you do if they miss one? Or so that was the extent of that. In nutrition, I took a nutrition course in nursing when I was going through nursing school, and that was the extent. But not even like to give doctors and nurse practitioners and everybody else credit, like the dietitians are the ones that are doing, like, if they're not holistic dietitians, they are perpetuating the problem by being okay with gluten, dairy, sugar,
Yes.
all that, perpetuating the inflammation in the body.
I definitely agree. That was something I had to learn, the benefits of a prebiotic, acidophilus, probiotics, stuff like that, breaking down what's in your gut, getting out all that rotten stuff in your intestines. That's
Yeah.
definitely something I had to learn, because this isn't talked about in our modern culture. Society
No.
doesn't really advocate having a healthy biome, a gut microbiome, having a healthy diet, having a purified and clean system. In a weird way, it kind of gets taken to extremes with things like veganism and other diets and things like that. But that comfortable middle ground, it's never really met. But if you could, because I'm very fascinated, very interested kind of with your growth to this point, would you say that it was because you weren't educated about vaccines and nutrition and things like that, they kind of spurred you to go down uh, the IV path?
So with that, when I was diagnosed with Crohn's and I was going through my treatments, I wasn't absorbing nutrients well.
Correct.
right? Crohn's, you don't. So I was trying to figure out, I was like, how can I get nutrients into my body bypassing my gut, which is inflamed and damaged right now? And that's what made me think about IV nutritional therapy. I didn't even know that it existed, but I started doing research and I found a school, a certification body on the coast, on the West Coast, that I got certified through.
Okay.
So I went there, I learned about vitamin C and glutathione and NAC, vitamin D, everything, and learned how to infuse it into people. And I started having it done on myself, and that's how it kind of popped up in my clinic.
So explain the process a little bit, and then we'll jump back into the questions. I hear it's done over like 4 or 6 hour period.
So it just depends on what someone gets. So typically when someone comes in, like I have different types of infusions. So my general clientele that, just comes in and wants to keep their immune system healthy, I have what's called an immune boost. So it's 12,000 milligrams of vitamin C, some B vitamins, and minerals. We start an IV on them, which I use the smallest catheter. It's tiny. It takes 45 minutes to infuse. And yeah, people just kind of get repleted from the depletions they get from day-to-day life.
Get that up there for the audience, because it is gosh, this is I don't know why I'm so fascinated by this, but I really am. I think, with all this stuff going on, the stuff of like vaccines and digital certificates, I feel like having this be the image of like health, having different treatments, different things like this. I feel like this is the positive image that people really need to see. But just to jump back to the UV light therapy, sorry to be all over the place, but some people were joking in the comments of our post about, oh, just go outside and get sunlight, or hop in a tanning bed. Could you please just explain for our audience why that's a silly approach? I mean, going out and get sunlight, that's not silly, but
yeah, no. I mean, when you're doing it infused through the blood, obviously, as we talked earlier, it's a different mechanism, right? Because it's actually touching the red blood cells as they're going by the light. Yeah, vitamin D from the sunlight is amazing, and I can't promote it enough. Sunlight is talked down upon.
yes,
Like we act like it causes cancers. It's not the truth. If you are a healthy person and you have a good environment and a good microbiome and your internal milieu is healthy, you will not have sun cancer, skin cancer. It's given a bad rep for really no reason.
well, I mean, it's life-giving energy. It's the sun. Are we that
we demonize it? We demonize the sun.
Are we that so far gone that the thing that gives life to this entire world of ours is considered evil now? Like, I don't understand.
Well, when someone's diagnosed with like skin cancer, Western medicine is an unempowering medical system. It makes you be the victim.
Yes.
So we can't tell you that you have skin cancer because you eat a shitty diet and you don't take care of yourself. We will tell you the sun is causing your skin cancer.
I just feel like
because then you're unempowered and you just have to go through these waves. And I guess that's kind of one of the main reasons that I had to get out of it, like out of my self-healing. I was unempowered. I was the victim. I was told that this poor me. And I was like, that's no way to live. I have to be empowered. I have to make choices for my body that feel good for me.
Yes.
So that when I did that, my whole life changed.
And I'm sure, this is a rhetorical answer, but I'm sure there are other doctors and nurses that share your same sentiment. We already went over this, but could you describe a little bit more in depth, kind of like your waking up process, saying, I'm not helping people, I'm hurting them. I want to heal them. Like, do you think a lot of people have that schism to where they say, I'm seeing one thing, being told another, and carrying out something else?
Yeah, that's a big spiritual journey that people have to go on, and I think we see a high rate of suicides among physicians, and I feel like that's one of the reasons, is because the demand and the inability to, like, they know they're brilliant. Doctors don't get their degree because they're not smart.
Yeah.
They're brilliant. So like to have to be fed through books and protocols that were done for the benefit of big pharma, like that can't sit well in someone that has morals and ethics. So yeah, it's hard.
I think in a weird way we've kind of been dancing around this next question I have for you. It's not with what I sent you, but do you think what we're experiencing right now is kind of like a reformation of like our health system? Like, do you think because we're talking about the redundancies some in certain places, how certain treatments are worse than the actual disease itself? Do you think with this event that we will see other treatments like IV light or IV therapy and UV light? Will we see other things like this happen afterwards?
I feel like it will, and I pray that it will. I mean, I think that the power is in the people's hands. So
Yes.
my goal is to empower everyone to be their own advocate for themselves. And when they do that and they see this stuff, they're the ones that can say, "Hey doc, I want you to try this UV light therapy with me. I want you to try vitamin C with me." And so if they keep pushing for it, their providers are eventually going to have to figure it out. Like, okay, either I'm going to have to learn about this or I'm going to have to find someone that's doing it because my patient wants it.
Yeah.
So
well, I mean, the supply, the demand is there. We just literally have to supply it. I mean, I feel like people are learning that vaccines they have their usefulness, but people need to know that there's other treatments. And I know we said this at the start of the show as well. You putting that post out there, it kind of reminds people that there are other things to do. But to get back into the group of things, for people that are unable to access the treatment, IV treatment and UV light therapies, what are other protocols and approaches that you would recommend to help people build their immune systems during this time frame?
So, getting back to the basics, like making sure they're getting the sunlight, so not staying cooped up in their house.
Yes.
Drinking a lot of water, getting enough sleep. I mean, these are all the things. Buying UV blue blocking glasses, you can get them cheap, and that can help with when you're on computers or anything like that. That can help save and help your circadian rhythm. If you have access to a sauna at a gym or somewhere local that can be affordable, sweating and detoxing is a huge benefit for your body. So those things, they don't have to cost a lot of money, but they can really help. And especially as we've been talking a lot, diet, vegetables, fruits, fresh food, anything that you can get into your body that's going to nurture it and not inflame it with sugars and processed foods.
Yes. Well, if you don't mind me asking, I feel like everything that has been promoted to us has been like counterproductive as far as like fighting a virus. So when they're telling us to go inside, we're not building our immune system, sanitize everything. You're not exposing yourself to potential diseases. Lower your immune system by not getting sunlight. Sit inside in a dark room, stress, have cortisol throughout your entire your brain and your body. I just feel like everything that was promoted to us was the exact opposite of what you would do.
Yes. And wear masks. Breathe in your own your CO2. Yeah. I mean, I agree. Everything like that, and that's why people are looking at you for your facts and your posts, because they want to know the truth, and they understand that the media is on this level of corruption and only telling one side of a story, and there's a lot of fear mongering going on, and people are getting that, and so we're waking up to it. So yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and if you could, you're way more qualified than me to speak on the concept of the second wave. This is something that we hear coming out right now, that we didn't build herd immunity because of all those steps that were taken, and because of us opening up things now, we might actually see a secondary wave of infections. Could you speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think if we open up now, at least in our area, it's warmer, right? So coming out, there will always be a spike. If you have people isolated for so long, there's going to be a spike when people get back to the real world. But luckily, if people are getting back to the real world now, there's the heat, there's the temperatures, there's the extra, there's the extra safety precautions that, just come with just having summer, right? We have less infections and illnesses in the summertime. So getting through that before we hit the winter, when our immune systems are lowered and depressed, it will help us. So I do think there's going to be a rise, but what are you going to do about it?
Right.
What are you going to do about it? Like, a vaccine isn't going to be a cure.
It's not.
Unfortunately.
Just to interject, they're already talking about different mutations and things like this, saying that whatever vaccine we come up with, it's not going to be the right combination. So that whole narrative that they're putting out there, it's like already, it's being deflated live time. It's very, very silly to see.
Yeah.
If because we see a lot of companies rushing to get a vaccine made. Gilead, Johnson & Johnson, I forget what the other company is.
Pfizer, Merck.
Pfizer, yep, Merck. Was GlaxoSmithKline, were they working on one as well?
I'm sure they all are.
Yeah, right, because they all want to take that money.
Yeah.
I'm worried about this. Are you the slightest bit worried about big pharmaceutical companies trying to come up with a vaccine?
Terrified. Yeah. They've already said they're going to start injecting it like real time into like children, into healthy children. And it's not right. These beautiful babies are going to be ruined, and it's because of ignorance and greed. It's greed. And when, like conspiracy theories, like I say that they're only conspiracy theories when like they're more real and believable than the truth, right? And when you follow these type of things, you follow the money and you see where everything's coming from. And Bill Gates is someone that's on the target for people that are, waking up, because you see what his foundation has put their money into, and all of the vaccine industries that he's put his money into all of these. He wants to be the one that gets this vaccine out, and it will cost billions of dollars for him. And it's scary. It's very scary.
It's very scary. And I think we should, because we're mentioning this, one of the reasons I think a lot of people are worried about what Bill Gates is creating is because of that quantum dot nanotechnology that they admit they will put inside of these vaccines with the immunity passports and the digital certificates. I think everybody has like a inherent issue with having something foreign forcibly injected into you and then turning you into cattle to where they can track you. And I know it's all under the guise of oh, we're here to care about you, the global health. Like, oh, I'm a public health and global health expert. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. But there's so many privacy violations that go with that. And as we talked about just before, with the combinations of vaccines, we're not sure whether or not that'll actually be the right one. And so there's so many red flags when you look at Bill Gates and his ties to these vaccines and how all of this is just being rolled out. Johnson & Johnson taking part in Event 201 back in October, asking for regulatory flexibility when it comes to manufacturing vaccines. It's like, does nobody catch that? They're literally asking for protection to conduct human experiments.
Yeah.
This is Nuremberg trials. Well, like nobody wants to talk about human experimentation. 5 times, we're just okay with it now.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
Right. Yeah. I wish I could ease your mind, but that's, I think, some of the struggles that we have as we are, waking up to this broken system. Like, that's why people are, I guess that's the beauty of this, is that people are waking up, and people on both sides, it's not political anymore, right? Because people are seeing Gates, and it's not Democratic, it's not Republican, it's just this one man's greed. And obviously there's a ton of people that are connected with this greed and, the 1%. But it's waking people up to be like, hey, I don't want that. And some people want it. They don't care. And you know what? Go for it. They can be the test subjects. It's your body, it's your choice, and that's what it should always be, which we shouldn't have to be mandated to do anything. I don't want to have a chip inside me to be able to to enjoy a trip with my family, or go to a game or something like that. I foresee that happening.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're already talking about it
Yeah.
with the new normal, and you've got California Governor Gavin Newsom talking about how things will never return until we get the passport, and that's just it's terrifying to see. It's fear mongering, and I also feel like it has to happen in order for us to have these kinds of conversations, so that we can link up, get this type of information out there to the public, and at the same time create a narrative of change. If people only see Bill Gates out there with his vaccine trying to shoot people up, they're going to say, "Oh gosh, well I guess this is the direction we're going." But
Exactly.
unless we start having like a honest to God conversation about effective and alternative holistic treatments towards a wide variety of diseases, we're going to go with this death science that Big Pharma has concocted, and that's what we need to point out. It's like a
Yeah.
multi-pronged battle right now.
Yeah, we're doing it.
We are. Just to get back on the topic, because I have a villainous professional hatred towards Bill Gates, and I don't want to. I don't want to.
It's hard. It's hard when you know what you know. It's hard to go back to feeling any different. So until I would see something different, I'm like, okay. I always try to give everybody the benefit of the doubt, but it's always like, especially with him, everything that comes out of his mouth is just, he doesn't hide it. This is what he wants.
Did you see him get giddy on CNN whenever he was talking about, well, we're just going to have to give you guys a shot. For the third world country, things may not go back to normal, but when we get the vaccine, did you see how giddy he got talking about it? There are just certain tells where you're like, good Lord, get this sketchy man off the TV. I don't want to see this anymore.
Right.
Oh,
so true.
Yeah, we got to stay away from Bill Gates, because apparently that's a trigger topic.
Yes.
But we were mentioning it briefly beforehand. The immunity passport and the digital certificates. I see that you also speak on 5G and things like this. A couple weeks ago, I don't want to say we got pressured. There's a lot of information that came out connecting coronavirus to 5G. We're not saying 5G causes coronavirus. We're saying that it helps potentiate the ability to contract coronavirus. If you could speak a little bit about 5G and what that does to our immune system.
Well, I will say before 5G, just, the flu vaccine in studies have shown that it increases the risk for coronavirus by like 30%. Yep. So, I mean, there's a lot of factors. Again, metabolic syndromes, obesity, all of that stuff has increased factors. 5G, it literally ruins our DNA. It's like a scrambler, right? So it weakens the cells in our body. It does. Wireless does. Electromagnetic field does that to our system in different degrees, right? So 5G is a major degree. It's a higher frequency. It's closer to us, right? They have to put the 5G everywhere because it's shorter span but more intense. So yeah, it's decreasing. In general, it decreases the immune function, right? Because it's weakening the cells in our body, which are our immune system. So when you do that, of course, it's going to be easier for any diseases to become apparent.
I feel like people don't understand how we're affected by things that we can't see. And when we start talking about electromagnetic radiation, frequencies, and how these things mess with our immune system, it really does get lost on them. If you could speak a little bit about how your phone, just a simple example of how your phone, when you put it up to your face, how it emits like a low level frequency that over extended periods of time can develop cancer. And so if people are thinking about how this very simple phone device that they have in their pocket all the time affects them, what about this even larger thing that's going on in the background that affects them? If you could speak a little bit more about that.
Yeah, a personal experience that I had, I didn't really ever realize that I was electromagnetically sensitive, but
that's a real thing. That's a very real thing.
It is. And I would have my cell phone. I would be holding it in my hands, and I complained every day to my boyfriend that my hands were sore every day. And I finally, a couple of years ago, I bought an EMF case. And I put it on, and weeks later I was like, Alex, I've not complained about my fingers hurting, have I? And he's like, no, you haven't. So it was literally me holding my phone that was hurting my hands. And so I have like just a EMF case that I have on my phone that I use all the time to protect when I do call. So when I make my calls, I never have my head on the screen because it does emit low levels.
Good. Good.
And I tell people, like, so safety wise, like, use a speakerphone. Don't let your phone die. Don't be using it at 2% because it does give off more EMF that way.
Yeah, and sometimes you can even feel it. You'll be holding your phone
gosh.
and you'll just get like a random surge of heat.
Yeah.
And nobody puts two and two together that's either your phone ramping up more power to receive more signals, or that's just like breaking down your breaking down your blood barrier. It's just so crazy to see all these different things that we're affected by, and to just see like, not negligence, but just to see these people that we're supposed to give our trust and our faith to see them kind of fall. It's just sad. But
people just don't like. I just don't think like the people that are like providers, your local doctors and nurse practitioners that take care of you, like they truly care for you. Like they're not there to cause you harm. They literally just don't realize it. They don't understand. And now, especially in the world that we're living in, it's every day is something new and it's really confusing. And for people to try to search for that truth, like I literally had to go internal, right? Like I had to meditate. I had to just be in myself to wake up. And it's not easy because when you're taught something your whole life and then your whole belief system changes, it triggers some internal stuff that you have to deal with.
You're right. Unlearning what you've learned is a very real thing, and then teaching yourself to learn in a completely different way, that's a very real thing. We had a guest on earlier this week that another doctor, ironically enough, in Singapore, that said the very same thing, that you've got to look at the world today with censorship, misinformation, fake news, an ever-increasing list of chaotic problems that we've got to deal with. People don't know. And this is a real fact. And so when we have conversations like this, we're not saying we know anything. We're just saying this is what we know. And this is how what we do know could help overall. But I love where your head's at. I also noticed that you have your own line of supplements. That's super cool. You want to explain that? Like, I feel like you're kicking butt over here, Steph. Like you're working with light. You're over here like rebuilding yourself, exposing vaccines, coming up with your own supplement line. Like,
as you can tell, everything that has been done in my life, my 32 years of life, everything that's been done is because of something that has happened to me, right? Vaccine, like talking about vaccines, but really the whole vaccine thing was seeing my patients and their kids being damaged. It wasn't even about me. But IV therapy, about my gut, supplement line. Again, I was getting supplements when I didn't know the difference, and I started learning about them, what a good product was and what something wasn't. And I realized that the stuff that you usually get behind a shelf at like Walmart or something or like that, nature made, it's a joke, and it has a lot of bad ingredients, and I didn't want my family or myself to be ingesting them. So I created my own supplement line. I have the best graphic designer. So yeah, we've just put these together because like looking at nature made, having polyethylene glycol, which is in like antifreeze and different chemical constitutions. Like there doesn't need to be any extra product in your supplements. It needs to be high quality. I teach people all the time about like the B vitamins. Like you don't want folic acid, you want methylfolate. You don't want B12 as cyanocobalamin. You want methylcobalamin. If you listen to the word of cyanocobalamin, cyanide. So there's a toxin in the cyanocobalamin that needs to be broken down by our body. So there's things like that we just need to be aware of when we're purchasing supplements.
Now, I've definitely heard of methylcobalamin, but I haven't gotten like a more detailed explanation on it. I hate to sound like a loser or a lame-o, but could you explain that a little bit differently for me and the benefits of methylcobalamin?
Have you heard of genetic mutations, like the methylation problems that we have? So over 50% of Americans can have some sort of methylation issue. So methylation is like how our body can break down things and make us our genetic predisposition. Okay, so some of us have methylation issues. So let's say, for instance, folic acid. Our body has to break down folic acid like 6 times before it goes into the cell. Well, if we have a methylation issue, it stops right here. So the folic acid can't break down into the cell properly. So if we give our body methylfolate, the higher quality form, it doesn't have to break down as much, and it actually starts past that genetic breakdown. So it gets absorbed into the cells. That's like the simplest way I can say it. So I tell people, like methylfolate is one of the easiest, and methylcobalamin for like B12 and folate. They're the easiest things to read on the back of a bottle. So if you see something with folic acid in it, you know that it's probably some cheap product.
Mm-hmm.
If you see something that has color in it, like run. You should never have to have fake color in a supplement. It's just an extra toxin that your body has to go through. So
yeah, it doesn't make sense. Is this why some people say that certain people don't have the minerals in their system to upload certain vitamins?
When you have mineral deficient, or when methylation issues or genetic deficiencies, yeah, you can have problems.
I thought so.
Yeah.
Okay, so the methylcobalamin will help whenever you're trying to upload.
The methylated vitamins are just they're already broken down, so they're easier for our cells to absorb.
Okay. Well, thank you for educating me.
Yeah.
I'm always trying different body sciences and different things. Like the other day, I went by this mom and pop shop because I was looking for zinc, and I thought I was super cool because I run miles every day. I'm out there in nature. I'm doing all kinds of stuff. So I thought, oh, I'm fine. I can take zinc straight. Don't take zinc straight.
Don't do it.
You will throw it up.
Yes.
You will throw it up. And don't drink it with orange juice because you will throw up the orange juice too.
Oh God. Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. I thought I was cool, trying to do body science, took zinc and threw it right back up. And so it's just interesting to hear these different type of things because you don't think about your body being like toxic or any of this type of stuff until you give it what it actually needs. And then you realize you may not be deficient, but you're not also abundant in it either.
Exactly. Yes. I always warn my patients, especially about zinc, for sure.
Yeah, I am. So needless to say, I'm slowly learning how to integrate it into my daily supplement routine.
Good. I mean, it's so good. Zinc is so good, but yeah, take it with a meal for sure.
Yeah, I do a lot of weird things in my body, and I'm just learning that I'm not as young as I used to be. I'll just say that. I'm not as young as I used to be. You don't recover as fast. You're trying all these things. It won't hurt you. It'll just kind of set you back a day or two.
Yeah.
But this next question I have for you, it's one that we've kind of been talking about throughout the entirety of the transmission. But why would government and media want to censor crucial information that could save people's lives? Is it for the almighty dollar?
I believe that. Yes. I mean, I have a feeling that some people want they're a fear, right? It's fear-based and they don't want to spread misinformation. But when you're controlling someone telling you to take vitamin C, something that can't hurt you, then there's other motives, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when we're looking at medications and not vitamins, like the hydrochloroquine and that cost in azithromycin costing about 50 to 68 cents a pill, and then that wasn't good enough, right? And so the Remdesivir or whatever the new antiviral is, $1,000 a pill,
Yeah,
that's
Fauci's
coming out.
approved
So
drug.
yeah, so that, I mean, obviously, look at where the money is, and that's where you'll find why media and everybody's being censored.
What are your, since you brought it up, what are your thoughts on hydroxychloroquine, azithromycin, and zinc?
I mean, when all this was going down, I was a huge proponent for vitamin C in the hospitals. I really wanted to get that going because it was done. Wuhan has trials out for it. New York City, they had a hospital that was doing it. So I know that vitamin C works and it would be easy and cheap and effective. But doctors are very hesitant on doing something like that, right? Because it's away from Western medicine. So give them a drug and they feel the power. And so my local hospitals are doing the hydrochloroquine, azithromycin, zinc combination, and they're having really good success. So, what the QT interval for the heart, that's what they're concerned with, it sounds like. And, when someone's going to die, what else are you going to give them? It's the Remdesivir or whatever.
Remdesivir.
Yes, it's not showing high quality output studies either. So it's just another drug that they're just going to try to push, and that's what it is.
Yeah, I feel like that's what's crazy about it too. Is you see people in France taking it on, people in Canada are doing hydroxychloroquine, people all over the world are beginning to adopt it. And I guess because Trump brought it up, or because it shows
political.
Hope. Yeah, political. They don't want you to have hope, and so they offered this horrible alternative to shut down that narrative. And I just feel like that it is so crazy to see politics being put over people's lives right now. It's like as if we have all these cures, doctors in Shanghai talking about doing what you're doing, IV vitamin C treatments to their patients, having wonderful success rates, and it's so simple, but because it's not, I don't know what, because it's not brought up by Dr. Anthony Fauci, or because it's not brought up by someone else, we're willing to kill ourselves over this. This is ignorance at its finest.
If you threw a drug name on vitamin C, it would be given right now. If you would do a placebo, if you would change the name and make it sound a little bit different, but be vitamin C, they would all be using it right now. And, to speak on that, like, I'm so passionate about this because, like I told you, my mentor, Dr. Paul Anderson, he's the one that fights against the FDA to keep the nutraceuticals and our compounding authorities, our compounding rights alive. And just to give you an example of this corruption is turmeric, curcumin, the orange spice that you cook with, a lot of Indian foods.
Put it in curry.
Amazing, yes. It's an amazing anti-inflammatory. It's an amazing anti-cancer agent. We were using it IV form for both of those. Like people having curative forms by using IV curcumin.
Nice.
So not making any FDA claims. But anyways, 2 people I know had a reaction from curcumin, which drugs reactions happen all the time, right? But we don't do anything about it. Well, after someone had an anaphylactic reaction, they took it off the market. And we're like, okay, when's it coming back? Well, they made it illegal for the raw ingredient to come to the United States. But then now there's a synthetic chemotherapy agent, Lipocurc, that is a curcumin agent that is going to be sold for, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
So synthetic curcumin instead of like organic and natural.
Yeah, so it will still kill you. I mean, it will have chemicals and stuff that like a chemo, so it will still kill you eventually. And you know how cheap and easy it would be just to get the real stuff. But yeah, it's like that. So it's in the end stage phase trials, and that's why it's not available in the States now. So I mean, that stuff happens all the time, and our regular public doesn't know about it. And that's what I live through, and I see it, and I'm like, this is not right. So that's why when people say conspiracy theory, it's like, no, this stuff happens. It happens all the time. Wake up.
It does. Just like the fact that more than 80% of our pharmaceuticals come from China. We don't manufacture. The majority of our drugs are manufactured in China. And even if we had the capability to produce 10% of that, of that whole production process, we would still need that 90% from China. We don't
Right.
produce our own drugs. What are your thoughts on that? That was something that was also another, if you ask me, a gem that came out during this whole process, that we don't produce our own drugs.
Yeah. There was, gosh, who, I can't remember. Maybe it was Peter Attia podcast. Peter Attia, I think he's a doc. I think he interviewed someone that was talking about, she was an investigative journalist and doing pharmaceuticals, generics from like India,
Mm-hmm.
and talking about like the way that they make generic drugs in general, which is something a little different, but like how there's no set ingredient list. It's just trying to calculate things backwards from something. Anyways, they were finding a bunch of tainted drugs, and yeah, there's all those concerns, right?
Wow.
Like, what's the ethical ways of in bringing in drugs or overseeing drugs from China or India or any other country? It's really hard.
Yeah. Well, this is as crazy as it seems. This is that weird good side. That weird upside. We actually get to have a conversation about where our drugs are coming from, what we're putting in them, why we even need these things in the first place. I know it came out last year that over 50% of Americans are on one type of prescription drug. So to have this go down, you're going to see a lot of people have to switch to natural and organic alternatives.
Yeah.
Financially, that's the only way that we can go. I would like to
Right.
think that this type of situation would create a situation where people begin to entertain these alternatives. I mean, we can't go back to we cannot go back to hydrocodone, oxycontin, cassettes. We can't go back to any of these types of things. Like they are literally killing people.
Right.
No, Advil, like, it's destroying people's blood barrier, it's destroying their lungs, it's destroying their brains. Like, we cannot go back to this. And as you said
Yeah.
before, we look at the manufacturing of them. We're talking about how India reverse engineers some of the drugs they get. How does that make sense? and then
Right.
and then we're giving these to people. So I think one of the reasons why I get worked up is because we're talking about not necessarily incompetence or negligence, but we're talking about, again, cracks in the system that have to either A, fall through, B, be exposed, or C, ultimately reformed. And I would like to think that's where we're at. But speaking of where we're at, the next question I have for you is what we're talking about. Is this event a chance to introduce alternative therapies into the mainstream?
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And I think that it's coming. I mean, people are being innovative, and I can tell you just personally with like my post, like just vitamin C sales for my supplements, like people buying vitamin C has been outrageous, like amazing. People are wanting to keep their immune systems healthy. So zinc, vitamin C, iodine, selenium, all of these great nutrients helping to promote their vitamin D is a huge one. Promote their immune system. Like it's really helping people that would have never came to me to ask for infusions or supplements. They were coming to me asking me. So I just see personally in my community, like people just starting to wake up and ask questions. So I think it's happening on a big scale.
Good. Good. I feel like that's the narrative that we need to go with. You see them coming up with the, oh, second wave, oh, mutations, oh, strains, oh, fear, 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 fear. I feel like
Right.
what we need to do is we need to put out this type of talking point. We can go with this narrative, or we can begin to build our own defenses, talking about these other solutions. Yes, we should be cautious of these things, but like you said before, what can we really do? Other than building up our own immune system so that we're not severely impacted by this, there's not much else we can do.
Right.
You know?
Yes. Immune system is key.
Yes. Few more questions for you. Two more questions for you, and then we'll kind of go from there. But is this event a chance to reform our modern healthcare system?
I feel like people living in the healthcare system, Western medicine model, I think they'll be speaking up to all the injustices that they've seen from their administration. And I mean, people not having PPE, people having to reuse PPE or go into someone else's room with PPE, stuff that we would have never had been acceptable any other time, and that all of a sudden being acceptable, and poor working conditions and all of that. Like the nurses and the docs, they're the ones that are doing all this frontline stuff, and the administrators are the ones that are creating these horrible policies. So I feel like there will be a big shift of people saying, people requesting that they want more. They want to be working in an environment where they feel safe, and they want to know. I have a lot of people that are nurses that want to know what other alternatives can be added. So just like I said, the hydrochloroquine and the azithromycin, adding zinc to that, the zinc is helping the hydrochloroquine, right? But just for having the nurse advocates in our local hospitals saying, hey, can you add zinc? Or the patient, like a family member of the patient saying, hey, I want to add vitamin C, I want to add zinc. They're doing this, and they're creating their own reform right now throughout, right in front of us. So
Yeah, that's one of the narratives I've been trying to tell people, is that we're expecting we're expecting like the best healthcare, because that's what they tell us. Oh, America's got the best healthcare system in the world, and then Corona hits, and then we see them literally creating, like you said before, a new protocol before our very eyes. So I feel
yeah,
like that's one of the crazier sides of this. People are expecting greater, but we're seeing we really can't deliver. So that forces us to fill that position. We've got to start thinking about better ways, not only to handle a crisis like this, but our health and what exactly we're promoting to society as a whole. Um,
right.
but my next question, final question, then we can go from wherever you'd like from there. What type of steps or response should we have going forward?
Types of steps response. Do you mean as a political or as a healthcare?
Oh shucks, Steph, I don't know. Um, let's go with healthcare, because everybody's over politics.
Yeah, I think that the to me the most important thing is preventative, right? Being proactive with our health. So for us to going into the winter months, especially like knowing that that's the time of our immune system goes down, doing things that we can to help our immune system strive, taking extra supplements, getting vitamin D in through.
Oh, it froze. Briefly froze. Hola.
Hola.
I don't know what that was about, but
I don't know where I left you.
you were talking about taking more supplements, preventative health care, taking the steps that you need to build your immune system up, and then
Vitamin D.
yes,
Okay. Yes. So yeah, vitamin D. Did you hear me talk about Iowa and we don't get enough?
I did not hear about Iowa. No.
Okay. So I check most of my patients in Iowa, and we're all deficient in vitamin D. Like usually Western medicine deficient. Western medicine vitamin D levels typically 30 to 100 is normal.
Wow.
In Iowa, I'd say our patient population averages around 27. This is healthy, not healthy. But to be the most immune protective with everybody is around 60 to 80. So
Wow.
we need a lot of vitamin D. So typically just standing out in the sun for 15 minutes daily isn't enough. So that's something that I typically have people supplement, especially going closer to winter time. But doing things like elderberry, echinacea, all of that can help boost our immune system as well.
I'm growing echinacea tea here in
Yeah.
my garden out here, and I have hemp tea bags, and so I'm running around telling everybody, "Hey, take this. You need this. You need this. Okay, now that you have this, sip it with a little bit of iodine. It'll taste great." Like blah 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 blah. I'm trying to do like everything I can to get people
Yeah.
to think in that context. I'm using elderberry extract, echinacea tea, vitamin C, having some pineapple juice, different things like that.
Yeah.
we live in abundance, but because our perception is so narrow, we sometimes get fooled.
Right.
So with the time that we have, we kind of got cut off there briefly, but did you want to talk about the political steps you think we should take forward, or do you want to just throw that away? I totally understand if you want to throw it away.
Yeah, I wouldn't, we just need to have ethical people in
Yes.
the political arena and people that aren't fueled by greed, people that are truly fueled by wanting to see people strive and be healthy, because that's the only way we're going to succeed as a nation and as a world.
I have one last thing to say, and I'll start wrapping things up. It's kind of in relation to your history with vaccines. You know, a lot of people think that because I'm anti-vaccine, I'm like anti-science. That's not the case. I'm actually pro-science. I'm a huge nerd. Do you want to speak on that? Why is there a narrative being put out there that because we're cautious of having things forcibly injected into our body, that we're considered heretical? Like, why are we crazy for being informed and not wanting things forcibly injected into our bodies?
I think it goes along the lines of everything else, just fear. We are taught Western medicine. We're taught not to question Western medicine. We just go through these things because that's what we're told to do. But we've come to a point where, and so before the media was able to tame this, right? They were tamed that people labeling them anti-vaxxers or conspiracy theorists. And now there's such a movement, like thankfully for the social media that, limits us now. But for that happening over the past years, women, mostly mothers, have come out to say, my child was very healthy and then they got this shot. Or I have 4 kids. The first one was vaccinated. They have a whole bunch of allergies and eczema and learning problems. My second one was delayed. My third one had maybe 1 or 2. My fourth one has no vaccines because I started researching more. Mm-hmm. And so that's what's kind of happening, is this paradigm is shifting, and it's really scary to the media and to the big pharma, right? Because what's going to happen when people are starting to question what they have never been able to question before?
Well, did you see just towards the end of last year and the start of this year, it got reiterated at the start of this year, the World Health Organization convened to have a summit on vaccine safety and vaccine information. I forget the doctor's name. She was the head of the actual vaccine organization. She says, hey, we're having a very shaky front line when it comes to vaccines. Not even our doctors and nurses are able to promote these things. So already the World Health Organization is aware that whatever they're doing with these vaccines, the adjuvants they're adding, like how it's reacting in people's bodies, they're aware of these things, but they're going ahead with it anyway. And I guess that's why I'm so grateful to have people like you, Stephanie, out there doing what you're doing, because people need to know that there are good needles, I guess.
Yeah, right. Yes. Yeah, no, as a provider, it's my obligation to listen to my patients. And just because a blood test comes back and it's negative, or, I believe my patients, I believe their symptoms, and I will fight for them because that's what I'm here to do.
How crazy to have a doctor that actually listens to her patients. What is it, 2020? And we have a doctor that listens to her patients. That's so strange.
Right. It's a unique, it's crazy to me, but yeah, it's one of those things, like that's why I have my own clinic, because I saw what I had to do at my first job, and just going through and every 15 minutes to satisfy other people's needs, and not feel like I was doing anything to help people. I just knew that wasn't going to be that I was going to practice healthcare. So
Steph, I'll tell you, I really do love where your head is at. I like what you're doing, and I'm telling you that you're helping save lives. Even by people watching this, they're going to go out and they're going to go find this treatment in their local area. So please, yes. Dear Lord, please keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. And just with that, when people are looking, like naturopathic docs, they're the first people that have done natural medicine for forever. They're there. So look for naturopathic medicine. in some states it's not legal, so you'll have to find like the actual accredited naturopaths, not the people that just get certified, but get the real docs that go through all their education. They're very smart, and they're integrative in just general. So please look for them. Look for integrative natural health practitioners. If you can't find one of them in your area, find a really good chiropractor that works on the body and works on the functional medicine aspect of the health too.
Closing word. What would you like to let the audience know?
Be empowered, like just always ask questions. Why? Be that toddler of you, ask why for everything. What is going in my body? Why is it going in my body? What is being said? Why is it being said? Always question everything. Don't take anybody's word for it.
Question everything. I love it. I love it. When I want to say thank you so much, Dr. Stephanie Grutz, for joining us. Where can people find more of your amazing work? And if they're in your local area, how can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, so I just would say contact me on Instagram. I'm at The Healthy Practitioner, and on Facebook the same. My clinic is Balance Integrative Health and Wellness.
Okay. I'll be sure to put all that information in the description bar below. But again, thank you so much for donating your time with us, Doctor. This has been a delightful conversation, and I hope you will join us again to talk about these things and more.
Would love to. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for joining us. This was a blast.
Awesome. Thank you.
I can't wait to talk to you more. Be safe out there.
Thanks. You too.
I'll do what I can. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Sounds good.
There she goes. Dr. Stephanie Grutz. All right.
Wow. What a powerful interview, right? Very insightful, very heady, very cerebral, but at the same time beneficial for you to get your body together. I will for sure put all of the links to Dr. Stephanie Grutz's information as well as her clinic in the description bar below, and keep her in your prayers, guys. You've got FBI rating hospitals that do IV vitamin C treatment, and Stephanie is one of these people. This is why we need to have these type of people on, and this is why we do this type of work. But however, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I really have for you guys and gals. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'll have it in the description bar below. And as always, guys and gals, stay vigilant. Expose lies and share truth. This is Noise Era, Freedom Faction, and Dr. Stephanie Grutz, out.